Hi there. Hello there, fellow co-psychics and aspiring psychics. This is spiritual psychic Cynthia Killian, also known as Psychic Cynthia. And I'd like to welcome you to today's video, which is dealing with a most interesting topic, one of my favorite topics, and that is making predictions in readings. And this video is geared for those of you who are developing your own psychic abilities and possibly your own psychic practice. And, if you're even just working with tarot cards for yourselves or the runes or a divination tool, in other words, if you're learning to read for yourself and possibly for a few others, even if it's just a few friends or family, predictions. I mean, this is something I get asked about a lot. How do you do that? And, how can you take your readings to the next level with predictions? And I will start by saying that predictions aren't easy. Even if you're working with a divination tool, such as the tarot or the runes, predictions are a tricky aspect of psychic reading. And, it's good to develop before you even really get into attempting to make predictions. It's good to develop your psychic foundation, your primary intuitive and psychic sensing. You want to work on the basics first before you try to be an expert predictor or any kind of predictor. And in this video today, what I would like to do is just sort of introduce the topic of making psychic predictions and maybe talk about some of the factors that are involved and why it's hard. And listen, this might need to be a two-parter or even a three-parter. Heck, this might need to be its own series, making psychic predictions, how to do that accurately. But let me share some thoughts with you on that. First of all, what I would like to just start off by saying is that it seems to me, from my many years of practice as a psychic and knowing so many other psychics through my involvement in spiritualism and just being out on the scene, it seems to me that some psychics are much better at making predictions than others. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the person is a bad psychic, quote unquote, if they're not good at making predictions. Because really a great deal of a psychic reading has nothing to do with predictions, in my experience. Even though most people think that what psychics do is read the future primarily. But I think if you're doing some readings now, you've probably figured out that's not true really, or that's an oversimplification, let's say. As I like to tell my clients when they come for a first time reading, the readings contain all of it, past, present, and future, because really, there is no time. I mean, we experience time here, but really, truly, in the cosmic sense, there's just the now. But getting back to the earthly realm where we are currently experiencing past, present, and future, right? Most readings have some element, at least the readings I do, and I think many psychics, it will have some element of all three of those. And then the reading will tend to focus more on one or the other. But it's not always the future. I've done many readings for clients where we have to go back into the past, especially a first reading, because they're still processing the past. They still have questions about what happened and they don't understand. And that's one tip I would share with you here. Don't assume that if you're reading for another person, even yourself, don't assume that what you need to know the most about is the future. You may need to know more about the past because you haven't processed it or you don't understand it yet. And many clients that come to me just need to know about what's going on right now. I say right now, not like at the exact moment we're doing the reading, but pretty close. So the recent past, in other words, because they're dealing with, some sort of crisis. And I can't even really take them that far into the future yet until we deal with the present moment and the current events, as I like to call it, current events, right? I mean, it's all great if you see somebody, let's say in a relationship reading, somebody's in a relationship crisis with their current partner. And it's all great if you see that 6 years down the road or even 2 years down the road, they're going to be with somebody else and they're going to be happy and it's going to be wonderful. That's all great. But if they are in the midst of a crisis with their current partner, you could tell them all day long about what you see in the bright future, and they're not going to hear you. Not really. They're not going to be able to receive it. So, maybe right off the top, one of the things I would share about predicting the future, this isn't how to predict it, but it is more about knowing when that is needed and sensing that and feeling that. And when you're doing a reading for someone else especially, the purpose of doing that reading is not to show off. It's not to show what a great psychic you are and how wonderful you are at predicting the future. It's to serve your client, to help them. That's why you do the reading, to help them deal with their problems and perhaps to help them spiritually awaken if they're open to that. But the first part is very important, to help them deal with their problems. Actually, most people don't go to a psychic consciously and say in their mind, I'm going to the psychic to spiritually awaken. Most people don't do that, okay? That doesn't mean that through your readings you can't help them to spiritually awaken. Because listen, if you're helping them deal with their current emotional and mental issues on some level, or even physical issues, just real world issues is what I'm saying. This world issues. If you're helping them to process that and deal with that, then you are helping them to spiritually awaken. I mean, even if you don't even get a chance to talk with them about their guides or their spiritual gifts, if you're helping them deal with some things, that will contribute to their future spiritual growth. So, I digress a little, but it's all relative here, or all relevant, I should say. So, know when predictions are needed and when they are not. And just because somebody asks for it in a reading doesn't mean it's needed either. Generally, I like to try to give my paying clients what they ask for. In terms of looking at it, if they ask me to look for something to see, the past, the present, or the future, I try to do that, if I can. But then there are times in certain situations where a client will ask me to predict the future, and I will not. I will refuse, okay? Now keep in mind, my clients are used to me as a reader, and I'm a very, in some ways I'm new wave, but in some ways I'm old school. And, if a client asks me to make predictions, say in a relationship about the future, but I really feel for them strongly that they need to deal with the past or what is going on right now, I will say that. I will say, look, I can't even begin to look at what's going to happen in the future because you have this situation right now and we really need to address this for you. Something like that. But okay, keeping all of that in mind, just know when predictions are needed. Because most of the time, if you understand the past and if you understand the current situation, you will know the future already. It's not that hard once you understand the past and the current situation. Those components of time or experience, those are much more difficult, in my experience, to predict the future. And I think bringing it back to what I opened with, talking about, it seems to me there are some psychics that are much better naturally at predicting the future, and some psychics that just don't seem to be so good at it, even though they might be good at some other aspects of reading. And there could be a lot of reasons for that, but one of the reasons I believe that is true is because the psychics who are really good that I have seen at predicting the future slow down and take the time in the reading to first get a firm grasp of the current situation and possibly part of the past as well. And when I say get a firm grasp, I mean, how do you do that? You might do that by asking some questions of your client. It's okay to ask some questions if you need to about the past if you don't understand. Now, those of you who have heard me talk about readings and all that in the past, or even watched me read, you know that my personal style, I don't ask a lot of questions of my clients, actually. I tend to just get in there, do the reading, open up, get the information, and relay it to them to make statements. But if there's something I don't understand, if I'm getting a piece of information and I don't understand how it applies, I might ask, well, like if I saw something that felt like a death energy, I would probably say I feel the death energy. And then it would be okay to ask, I think, has somebody recently died, or do you feel like you're going through a metaphorical death? Those kinds of questions, okay? Don't get too caught up in asking questions. The reason I don't do a lot of that is because I actually find when you ask a lot of questions of your sitter, in other words, the person you're reading for, that can confuse you as a psychic and sort of block your flow if you're asking them too much at the same time you're trying to receive.